And welcome to It's Not Your Fault. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kim Power-Stilson here with Steve Shenk, the author of It's Not Your Fault. And he is the philanthropist and entrepreneur. He's the founder of eFoods Direct. He's a food expert who has over 30 years of journeying across the nation and the world, meeting people and talking with them about their life, has written this book called It's Not Your Fault. Steve here is joined by our guest co-host, Lexi, who's having a nap on Steve's knee. So thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about one of the principles in Steve's book, which is coming out soon. You can find out more information about it on steveshenk.me or itsnotyourfault.tv. So, Steve, this is a good friend of yours.
Yeah, she's the chairman of the board of directors. But it always bothers me when you refer to me as a philanthropist. It sounds too close to philanderer, and it just kind of...
Sorry about that.
I don't know, what can I say? So
Now, Steve is a great jokester, and as you get to know him on the show, It's Not Your Fault, you will find that he has a great sense of humor and an awesome radio voice. So, does that bother you that I say that?
Well, no, it doesn't bother me. It's just that it'll remind people that I've got a face for radio also. It's just, what can I say?
Well, it's a big compliment for me because I host a show on Sirius XM, and I'm a big fan of yours and have been. I saw you on a couple of those great national TV programs and radio programs you've been on, and you have a message that really reaches out into the hearts of people in the nation today, especially with everything going on, but most especially to me as a mom and a woman and a mom. The things that you're saying have really helped me with my children, which I appreciate you for.
Well, the biggest aid for children, of course, is birth control. But the fact is that I've raised teenagers. What can I say?
I know.
I
have two right now, so I know. There's a valid point, but we're kidding. But in reality, what I've seen through reading your book, now I have an advance copy. If you want one and are a blogger or an editor, you can get one just by contacting us at Steve Shenk, food expert at Gmail, and as well we'll have other email addresses at the end of this program you can click to, or go to Facebook. Go to Steve Shenk on Facebook. What I have seen is that, your book, the principles in your book, have helped me feel better about myself, and so I have been able to be a better mother, a better worker, a better wife, a better friend. And that seems so simplified, but if you can have joy in life and...
What keeps you from joy in life? What prevents joy in life?
I don't know, confidence or being overwhelmed?
That's kind of where we need to go. But essentially what prevents joy in life is worry, fear,
okay, yes,
discouragement, upset, anxiety, and all of the negative side of the pyramid. It's kind of fascinating. Most of us spend our time worrying about things that we can't do anything about. Parents do this tremendously. Parents run around saying, "Oh, my kid is getting crummy grades and he doesn't have any friends, and how do we should we start throwing parties so that we can invite people over so our kid can be more socially active?" And other parents are saying, "My kid is so socially active, he doesn't want anything to do with the family. She wants to date every night, and she doesn't want to even, she cuts classes and doesn't go to school, does all these things. And I've got a teenage driver that just wrecked the car 3 times.
Do you live at my house?
What am I going to do?" Well, hey, I've been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, went to the convention and spoke 3 times. For crying out loud, this is what happens. And wives and mothers are dealing with this in spades. Fathers worry over it, and the question is, do I go get my kid out of jail, or do I let him sit and learn a lesson from consequences? And there's so much stuff that we're dealing with, and we're worrying and stressing over stuff we do not have any control over what anybody else does. You see, we're raised in a society where people virtually are in denial of responsibility for their own lives. I try to be as spiritual as I can, okay? And I believe that everybody should work with some spiritual beliefs in God and prayer and fasting and meditation, all of this stuff that develops the individual. But what people don't understand is all of that is designed to help us to deal with our own situation. You see, you can pray as much as you want to, but not many people have God come down and say, hey, listen, you've got a teenager that you're dealing with. Let me take care of that problem for you. No, because he doesn't want to get in the way of the curriculum that you've written for yourself. The reason that you're in that situation is because you deserve to be, because you need to learn what you need to learn about dealing with that teenager, and that teenager needs to learn what they need to learn about dealing with life so that they can go on and become the magnificent individual that they are, and so that you can become the magnificent, deep, comprehensive individual that you are. But yet, we block ourselves by expecting somebody else to fix us.
That makes
when
sense.
people kneel down and ask in prayer for God to help them, a lot of them say, come and fix this problem that I'm in. Where, does he ever do it? Not really.
Maybe gives you the strength.
You might get some inspiration. You might get a comfortable feeling that everything will work out all right. But bottom line, you have to go and pick up the phone and call the bill collector and say, hey, I'll get you paid whenever, so you can stop the process of the foreclosure or whatever the heck you're dealing with. What Father is teaching us is, in this school of life, which is absolutely magnificent, is how to be absolutely self-determining and make decisions and be in control of our destiny and be the magnificent creatures that we're supposed to be. And you see, what happens when we discover that we can't fix anybody else, and that we go to my son that came home and said, chemistry is useless and it's crappy and I don't need it and I'll never use it and why do I have to study it? And I can say, and it's a challenge to me, why do I have to take chemistry? Okay, I can go through the argument, well, you never know what you're going to need. I use some of the concepts that I learned in chemistry and in math and stuff all the time, but I can't tell you which ones you're going to need. That's too nebulous for him. What I said to him last night was, no problem. Obviously, if you understand the principle that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
And that's a principle in your book.
That's a principle in the book. All I said to him was, obviously you as a student are not ready for the teacher of chemistry to appear. Now, you'll either figure that out, but until you are ready, and this will relate to a lot of parents that have tried to teach their kids principles, they see them doing stupid things. By the way, there's a statement that is really fun for me. You can fix a mistake, but you can't fix stupid. Think about that. But you see your kids making stupid mistakes that you've already been through because you made the same stupid mistakes and you know the consequences. But you see, until they're ready to receive the teacher, which is usually a 2x4 across the forehead, they are not ready to listen to Dad. That's why by the time they're 34, they come back and say, you know that stuff that you were trying to teach me, Dad, when I was 16? All of a sudden, I knew you were stupid then, but all of a sudden you've gotten very intelligent since I'm having a teenager that I'm dealing with the same thing.
And that's happened to you? Your kids have come back and said...
Yeah. At one point in time,
there's hope for us.
One way or another, yeah, they do. And sometimes they don't come back, but sometimes I have the opportunity to say, you remember when? And they say, yeah. And I say, and do you remember what? Yeah. And now do you see? Uh-huh. It's just the same type of stuff. But it's kind of fun. But where we're going with this whole thing is that we can't fix anybody. And the state of denial is the reason that we have problems in our society. People want the government to fix them. Kids want their parents to fix them. They expect the teachers to be totally entertaining and make a subject interesting for them. I had a son, one of my sons was attending a class for religious instruction. He came home and he says, this is really boring. They don't tell us anything we haven't already talked about at home. Okay, you have to sit in the class, right? So, okay, here's your job. It's not the teacher's job. It's not the school's job. It's your job to make the class interesting.
To be receptive or to...
Doesn't make any difference how you do it. If you got to be there for an hour anyway, you can either say, okay, this is a crummy hour and I'll just sit through it and be miserable and complain and fuss and cry. But as a father, don't complain at me.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's your problem. I can't fix it. I can't go make the teacher fun. I can't go to teach a class for you.
So if the kid's sitting there in class saying, oh, it's boring, what you're doing is by telling him it's his problem, it turns the owner's burden back to him or her, right, to decide about their attitude towards it.
Yeah, but what does it do to me?
Well,
it's your problem.
I'd have one less thing to worry about.
And
wow,
if he's not getting
idea.
a good grade in that class, okay, very simply, you got a choice. You have to get a decent grade, otherwise your insurance rates will go completely to heck, and you won't be able to drive the car.
Okay.
Not my problem. Not my problem.
So you decide whether or not you get to drive the car.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I love that.
And if you don't like the class, you can decide either you work just enough to get your grade to where it needs to be, and you can be miserable and it'll be hard work for you, or you can find some way to make it fun and enjoyable, which every subject... There's a principle in the book that you hear about, and it's about people. To know me is to love me, but it's very simply true about subjects too. I had to take geography in my senior year in college because it was one of the things that I hadn't done that I just kind of needed. Geography, boy, that's a boring subject. But I had this thing about getting straight A's at that point. Earlier, I didn't, but at that point, I had this thing about getting straight A's, and so I decided I'm going to really delve into it. As I really poured myself into it, I found that geography is absolutely fascinating.
Wow,
and
okay.
I found that about everything. To know a subject is to love a subject. To know an area. A lot of people... young people in Utah go out on missions, and they come back, if they've poured their heart and soul into doing the work that they're doing out there, they come back loving the area, and it could be some place that was the crummiest mission field that, they wondered who hated them because they were sent there when they heard about the mission. But they come back loving it. Others come back and say, it was the crummiest experience of my life.
Well, and that, before you go on, that's an interesting point. We were talking about a service mission for the LDS Church, if you're wondering, for those of you watching. But that could be anything that you do that is something you
choose to do, have to do, want to do, could do, should do, are forced to do. You can make it the most phenomenal experience or the crummiest experience, and it's totally up to you. So let's go back to what I said to my son. Okay, obviously chemistry, this student is not ready to appear. And when I go back to that subject that the son was complaining about not enjoying, I said, it's your choice. You can make it fascinating or not. Ask questions. Force the teacher to ask questions that you want the answers to. That teacher would love to have somebody take enough of an interest so it can give him some direction as to how he can make the class interesting. Somebody show some interest.
That is great advice. I have teenagers. That is great advice.
Well, obviously. It's not advice, guys. Think about this. What you're going to hear from me, and when Kim and I talk, it's not advice. It is just what works. Now, you can use it if you want to. You can sit there and say that this gray-haired guy is kind of half a bubble off with one order in the water, a brick shy of a load, a taco short of a blue plate special, and the elevator doesn't go to the top. And you can say, well, that's kind of goofy stuff. Or you can try it. If you try it, you'll like it because it works. We got to take a break.
All right, you're listening to and watching It's Not Your Fault, hosted by Steve Shenk, author of It's Not Your Fault. You can find him on steveshenk.me and It's Not Your Fault TV. We'll be right back with more after this.
Folks, have you ever realized that freedom is spelled F-O-O-D? Food. After air and water, food is our greatest dependency. Taking control of that dependency ensures personal power, independence, and freedom. We can't control earthquakes, storms, martial law, dollar crash inflation, the global warming hoax, farm and garden restrictive legislation, job loss, crop failures, or the 2012 planet disruptions. However, if we have our own food, none of these can control us. Hunger can never be used to control you if you never are forced to stand in a bread line because you do not have your own bread. It seems the only freedom we still have control of is possession of food. If we don't control our own food, events are rapidly moving to use food to control us. Freedom truly is spelled F-O-O-D. Contact efoodsdirect.com or call 800-409-5633. That's efoodsdirect.com or 800-409-5633.
And welcome back to It's Not Your Fault. We're right here on Talk TV with Steve Shenk, the author of It's Not Your Fault. I'm Kim Power-Stilson. I'm co-hosting with Lexi today. Lexi is having a little nap during the show.
She's not really a rug, folks. She is actually a critter. There you go.
Yes, and she's so sweet. So before the break, we were talking about some great principles from Steve's book, It's Not Your Fault, and I'm loving it because as a mom and a teenager, we're talking about having the teenagers take their own ownership and me having less on my plate. So I'm all ears. Let's keep going.
Well, what happened with that particular son was he went in and he started asking questions.
In the chemistry class?
No, I got two sons mixed up here.
Okay, okay.
The chemistry thing was just last night, and this other son was 30 years ago. But anyway, so,
a few days ago.
There you go. But anyway, he started asking questions. Mm-hmm. And then we had parent-teacher conference. And the teacher, when Sherry and I walked in and met the teacher, he said, "My gosh, all I can tell you is that this kid knows about as much about the subject as I do, and he's really challenging me with the questions, but he seems to be the only kid in the class that's having a good time." So I go back and study up to answer his questions, and the whole class is perked up.
Oh, wow.
Well, what the heck?
Just
What's
by asking questions.
Yes.
By interest.
By taking control. You see, most people function like a bunch of baby birds. Yeah, most people function like a bunch of baby birds. Have you ever watched baby birds? The mom comes in, lands on the side of the nest, and all they're doing is going, "Ah, ah, ah, ah," opening their mouths, waiting to be fed. Well, how is that? Is that the way your kids work? Any of you that have businesses like I've dealt with, is that the way your employees work? Is that the way, husbands work? When their wife says, "Look, we've got to get some things put together," and he says, "I don't know what to do. I could get another job." Well, Melvin, get out and get another job because we need some more money because you're spending more than what we're making. And, we've got, and some wives do the same thing. "Oh, I don't know what to do about my kids. I don't know. I work my fingers to the bone and all I've got is bony fingers," and that type of stuff. The poor me, victim mentality, life is I'm being done unto. They blame their parents, they blame the church, they blame the schools, they blame the government, and ultimately they blame God. "Why did you do this to me?" And what they're doing is becoming victims that have given away the most magnificent part of themselves, and that's their ability to be self-determining. If you don't like the situation you're in, fix it. Because you're the only one that can.
And that's by this principle. I mean, many other things, but that principle. Which is if you don't want what everybody else has got, you got to do something different than everybody else does. But the basic principle is the fact that we have total control over our lives and what happens in our lives. Now, I know that a lot of you are out there saying, "Yeah, but my boss did this, my whatever did." Okay, that's where the book comes in. It's not your fault, and it's not, and I can prove it.
But what it is your responsibility. It's not your fault that the company downsized and you got laid off. But what you do about it is totally your control. What you do is you set a goal or an objective. You state it every morning and every night. You visualize yourself with the exact job that you want. And these principles are all taught in the book, and you also have a little journal that you're going to be filling out every single day of your life, and you have a list of all the things you want to accomplish, all the things you want to have, all the things you want to do, and that list you read every morning, every night, and you visualize having it, and it works. You literally can be the creator of your destiny and your life. But what people have learned through this victim mentality that we have is that victims have big butts. You know, victims say, I could have made the team, but the coach didn't like me. I could have gotten the promotion, but the boss didn't like me. I could have done whatever I wanted to accomplish, but my wife didn't agree with me, but this, but that, but the government, but the taxes, but all of this stuff. Okay? So it's called freedom of choice. And it's called the ability to decide and the ability to control your environment and your destiny and to become whoever you want to be. So what we've got here is we need to turn around the victim mentality, and we need to look in the mirror and say, I am in total control of what happens to me, and if I'm in a situation that I don't like, I fix it because I'm the only one that can. You see, when my kid that doesn't like chemistry decides to make chemistry an interesting subject or not, he has determined whether he has a good teacher or a bad teacher. He has determined whether that class is going to be useful and valuable or just a waste of time. It's the same way with the entire high school experience. It can be the most exciting, fun time of your life or the crummiest time and a total waste, and you'll never use any of the stuff, and you'll go out and get your GED because you quit school. What do you want? What do you want for results? And you see, the beautiful thing, we started this whole subject with worry about other people's problems. If you let anyone around you have control of their lives, and you say, okay, what do I need to worry about? I don't need to worry. I just need to decide that if I don't like something in my life, I fix it. If I don't like something in somebody else's life, there might be one question you might ask yourself. So, how does it affect you? If it doesn't affect you, you dump the responsibility onto them. Tell them what you need to tell them. If you, as the teacher, can be accepted because they're the student ready to have you appear, fine. If they don't want to listen, you say, okay, you're not ready for my teaching yet. Obviously, till your student is ready, go ahead and get the 2x4 across the forehead. Can't do anything about it anyway.
And here are the consequences, but
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
it could work.
If they want to be bailed out of jail, say, well, you got yourself into it. I don't have $1,400 to pay your bail, so sorry. This is not being an enabler and not worrying and troubling yourself and getting old over somebody else's problems. Even if you love them to pieces, act like God. He doesn't do it, so why should you? He's a better parent than you'll ever be, but that's the truth.
What a principle. Steve, powerful principle. To learn more about this, we can just visit your site and come to one of your conferences. There's a newsletter you can get. And of course, you can always watch the show every week here with Steve. The principle again is?
You are in control of your destiny. It's your choice. Nobody can fix you but you. But the beautiful thing is, you're not responsible for fixing anybody else.
Yay! You could have a great day with that principle. Let's try applying that. And
it's very liberating.
Very liberating. And as a mom, I know I'm going to use it, and we'll report back next week. And
do that.
So join us online in our community and tell us how you like it. This is It's Not Your Fault with Steve Shenk.